Hey there, I'm glad to see you on my channel. Make sure to subscribe as we post amazing stories every single day.
I wasn't born into a life of privilege. Far from it. My first pair of cleats were second-hand, handed down from a cousin who had already worn them into the ground. I duct-taped the soles until they stopped talking back with every step. I still remember the rubber scraping against the concrete as I ran from school to practice, too embarrassed to walk with everyone else, too stubborn to give up. My town was the kind where dreams had expiration dates. You either got out early or learned to settle. Most days, I didn't have time to dream. School, work, practice, sleep, repeat. My mom worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on. My dad wasn't in the picture, and I never really asked why. Football. Real football. The kind with a round ball and muddy fields was the only thing that made sense. It was the one place where effort mattered more than money. Where I could be somebody, even if just for 90 minutes. I played with fire in my chest. I trained harder than anyone else on the team, not because I was the most talented, but because I didn't know any other way. Pain was part of the routine. So were calluses, bruises, and the constant hum of doubt in the back of my head telling me I wasn't good enough. But I kept going. By the time I was 19, I was playing semi-pro and sharing a 1-bedroom apartment with 2 teammates. We slept in shifts, ate whatever we could afford. But we were chasing something, and that counted for more than comfort. It was during that year, at a community charity event tied to our club, that I saw her. She wasn't like the girls who lingered near the stadium after games, full of compliments and camera angles. She wasn't trying to be seen. She already was. She stood by a food stall, helping serve homemade pastries for one of the local bakeries. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, strands falling loose as she moved. Her eyes scanned the crowd like she was looking for someone real. Not a fan, not a flirt. Just someone who saw the world the way she did. And God, that smile. Not the practiced kind. The rare kind that feels like it belongs in a quieter, better world. She laughed at something one of the kids said, brushing flour from her cheek with the back of her hand, and I swear the noise of the entire place fell away. I didn't talk to her that day. I couldn't. My throat closed up. Me, someone who'd played in front of thousands, couldn't form a sentence. But she stayed in my mind. For days. Weeks. I started stopping by the bakery where she worked. Not all the time, just enough to make it look like coincidence. She didn't notice me at first. Or if she did, she didn't let on. I learned her name from the tag on her apron, Emilia. It suited her. Elegant, but grounded. I started noticing things. The way she wore mismatched earrings. The way she tucked her hair behind her left ear when she was focused. The way she gave leftover pastries to the homeless guy who sat by the bus stop without making a show of it. And I noticed how she didn't notice me. Not in the way I wanted. She was polite, professional, kind. But her smiles didn't linger. Her eyes never searched for mine. To her, I was just another customer ordering a black coffee and a croissant, barely worth remembering. That messed with me more than I wanted to admit. I was used to being noticed. On the field, off the field, it didn't matter. People liked winners. They liked athletes. But Emilia, she didn't care about my goals, my press coverage, my stats. She didn't even ask what I did until the 3rd or 4th time I came in. When I told her, she just nodded. "Cool," she said, then went back to ringing up my order. "Cool," I couldn't get her out of my head. She was the one thing I couldn't win with skill, sweat, or determination. I had to be more than an athlete. I had to be someone worth knowing. So I tried. I started reading, asking about books I saw behind the counter. She'd recommend things, stories she loved, stories that shaped her, and I'd actually read them. We'd talk, slowly, carefully. I learned she studied graphic design before dropping out to help her mother run the bakery. Her dad had passed when she was 17. She loved art museums but hated modern art. She couldn't stand the smell of tuna, loved thunderstorms, and had a habit of doodling vines and flowers along the edges of paper napkins. I told her about football, about my team, about my dreams of playing professionally, maybe abroad. I told her about my mom, about growing up on the edge of broke, about how failure scared me more than pain. She listened, not with pity, just presence. Still, nothing changed. Weeks turned into months, and we stayed in that strange orbit, closer than strangers, not quite friends. I started performing better on the field, scoring more. Coaches noticed. Scouts came around. I got invited to training camps I used to only dream about, but none of it felt as big as the small nod I got from Amelia when I told her the news. One day, I asked if she'd come watch a match. She smiled, polite as always. I'm not really into sports. That was that. And yet, 2 weeks later, she showed up anyway. I saw her from the field, standing in the back, near the food trucks, arms folded, jacket pulled tight against the cold. She didn't cheer, didn't wave, just watched. After the match, she was gone. But the next day, when I came into the bakery, she handed me my coffee with a small grin. "You're pretty good," she said. That was it. But to me, it felt like the first point on the scoreboard. From that day on, something shifted. Amelia didn't suddenly fall into my arms or start texting me late at night, but the walls she kept so carefully built began to show cracks. Tiny ones, but I noticed them. She asked about my matches. Not always, not directly, but her questions came laced with curiosity. How was the game on Sunday? You looked exhausted yesterday. Did you win? They were subtle invitations, so I responded in kind. I didn't push. I didn't rush. I started bringing her little things, nothing romantic, nothing dramatic. A keychain shaped like a croissant from a quirky shop downtown. A sketchbook I found at a bookstore, wrapped in brown paper. She didn't always say thank you, but she kept the gifts. One rainy evening in late October, the city was soaked and quiet. The bakery was about to close when I walked in, drenched and freezing. Amelia raised an eyebrow. "You're insane," she said, passing me a towel from behind the counter. "I was nearby," I lied. "You live on the other side of town." "I was hoping for a free pastry," she smirked. "You should have just said you wanted to talk." That night, I stayed behind after closing. She made tea. We sat on stools in the empty bakery, surrounded by flour and cinnamon, and for the first time, she talked without filtering. She told me about her old dream of moving to Florence to study classical art, about how she used to believe in soulmates until she watched her mother get her heart broken twice, about how people disappointed her more often than they surprised her. I told her I wanted to be the kind of person who surprised her. She didn't say anything to that, but she didn't ask me to leave either. After that night, we started seeing more of each other, quietly. We never called it anything. There were no labels, no declarations. Just two people orbiting the same little world, slowly drawing closer. Sometimes I'd show up early before morning practice just to walk her to the bakery. She'd bring me fresh coffee and a muffin when she could. On Sundays, we'd walk through the city. She showed me murals I'd never noticed, back streets filled with color and history. I started seeing the world through her eyes, and it changed the way I lived in it. But it wasn't perfect. There were days she pulled away, times she seemed lost in her own head, guarding her heart like it was made of glass. I didn't press. I knew too well what fear could do to love. Then came the offer, a real contract. A team in Germany, second division, but professional, stable, the next step up. They wanted me by the start of spring. I told her over lunch. She didn't react, just nodded and stirred her tea. "When would you leave?" she finally asked. "In 2 months." She stared at her hands for a long time. "You should go," she said. "I want to," I told her, "but I want you to come with me." That made her look up. "You don't know what you're asking." "I do." She shook her head, almost laughing. "You don't. You have your dream. Don't let me be the thing that ties you down. You're not a weight. You're the reason I want the rest of this." It wasn't a fair ask. She had her life here. Her mom, the bakery, her routines. I was asking her to leap into uncertainty for someone she hadn't even called a boyfriend out loud. But 2 weeks later, she handed me a small envelope. Inside was a plane ticket. One way. "Don't expect a fairy tale," she said. "I just want real," I replied. We moved into a small apartment near the training grounds. It wasn't glamorous. She didn't speak the language. I was exhausted most days, but somehow it worked. She found a job at a little gallery helping organize events. I watched her come alive around canvases and colors, and it reminded me of who she was before life dimmed the lights. At night, we'd sit on the tiny balcony wrapped in blankets, listening to the sounds of a foreign city, her head resting on my shoulder. We weren't perfect, but we were growing. 6 months in, I knew I didn't want a future without her. I didn't do anything elaborate. No photographers, no hidden choirs or rooftop dinners. Just us, on the balcony. The same place we always came back to. I pulled out the small box I'd been carrying for weeks. My hands shook. Not from fear, but from everything this moment meant. "I don't have speeches," I told her. "Just this. I love who I am when I'm with you. And if you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life learning how to love you better." Her eyes filled with tears before she even opened the box. She didn't say yes. She didn't have to. She just kissed me like she hadn't in weeks, like something old had broken open and something new was rushing in. And that was enough.